Every business and organization have a unique set of business requirements that derive their strategic IT initiatives. But there are some commonalities. They all want to reduce cost and increase agility. And everyone wants to create new value, whether that is in terms of revenue or new services. And here the new technologies play an important role. To discuss this in broader sense, I would like to invite Manish Gupta, Senior Director and General Manager for Data Center and Compute Solutions, Dell Technologies India, to talk on creating a digital world, role of emerging technologies. Platform is all yours, Mr. Gupta.
Good morning, and a very warm welcome to the session around creating value in the digital world. My name is Manish Gupta, and I'm the General Manager for the Data Center and Compute Solutions for Dell Technologies in India. Data is the new oil, is a cliche that we have heard very often. The fact that we are all moving in a digital world is nothing new to us either. Gone are the days when zeros and ones and the bits and bytes were only in the realms of computers. Now, all of that has become a reality for us in the physical world as much as in the realms of IT. By the way, the value that comes out of the data and just being able to get into the data mindset and unlocking the data value is what will define our ability to succeed and be able to become the disruptors in our industries in future, and which is where we firmly believe that emerging technologies and the deployment adoption of emerging technologies would be a key driver in organizations being able to accelerate their path of digital journey. The disruption that we have seen over the last couple of months in the form of pandemic has really taught all of us and a lot of the CIOs across India and the globe the value that remains in accelerating the progress on digital transformation, because that's the only way that we'll be able to create those new digital channels of engagement. We'll be able to empower the workforce, will be able to give workforce the granular access of data that they require so that productivity doesn't drop and business does not come to a standstill. I firmly believe that the CIO in an organization today is really fueling the entire innovation in by bringing in the agility, by bringing those hyper efficient models that can only be based on unlocking the value of data, and which is exactly where we need to figure out what is that shiny next thing that will make this all a reality. In fact, we are looking at a myriad of technologies all around us. You're right, from IoT to blockchain to 5G to data center as a service, you name it. The big question is which of these are most practical for what kind of use case? The other big question is which of these technologies would really live to see another day and accelerate or allow us to get value from all of the data that we have and help us be the digitally transformed organization. Being in the technology industry, leading a lot of these innovations, we are in the prime spot to help answer some of these questions and make sense out of this conundrum, and which is precisely what we as Dell Technologies are trying to do. Now, if you look at the millions of customers that we engage with, we did the survey which told us that, like all of us here in India and so many other customers globally, majority of them are really concerned about the fact about their ability to service and not be disrupted by their competitors in the coming few years. But equally, there are a lot of pilots that are going around in most of the IT organizations. 82% is the result of the survey that we had, where customers are deploying, organizations are deploying at least one or the other emerging technology in their IT environments to ensure that they accelerate the entire journey. Now, having said this, let's look at what are those top emerging technologies that are at the top of the mind of IT decision makers and the CIOs across the globe. If you look at the top five are not surprisingly the topmost is cybersecurity. Just given the fact that the cyber security exposure area has increased so much more, and we are starting to see so many more instances that actually hurt at the core of the businesses. The second key one is IoT. Not surprising there again. multi-cloud, which is more a strategy than just a destination. Artificial intelligence, just given the fact that there's so much of data and AI is possibly the only path by which organizations can make sense of all of that data. And the fifth one is clearly compute centric architectures. And this goes back to building the modern, flexible, modular architectures that will be able to take advantage of all the new innovations that are happening. So clearly, as we look at our peers across the globe, these turn out with the top emerging technologies that are being deployed to ensure that organizations are transforming themselves well enough. Let me now try and paint a picture of where the investments are happening globally. And some of the examples, we know the market is really booming in terms of IT investment, given the fact that it is core now for organizations to innovate. But look at something like artificial intelligence. And while the market has grown substantially, what we should also remember is the amount of innovation that's happening. Just in the last 2 years, over $5 billion of venture capital funds have flown into organizations that are building new models around artificial intelligence. And this is just the beginning. We will continue to see more and more of this. So, what that tells us is that there will be more innovation coming in these technologies, and that would further fuel newer business cases, newer use cases of deployment, which will thus make it essential for all of us to imbibe and use them. In our view, the key pillars of emerging technologies will start from data. And organizations, as they are able to utilize the data in creating new efficient models, in being able to take that tsunami of data and take advantage and make sense out of that data. And finally, putting all of this together in business models that are transformative enough to generate future value. That really is the cycle where we firmly believe that emerging technologies will help organizations unlock the value of the data, unlock the value of what they can do with their customers, and be more productive in future. Just to put things from framework standpoint, how does the framework look? The first and the starting point really in emerging technology is the edge. And there's a lot of conversation that's been happening around edge, in particular over the last couple of quarters. I can tell you every single CXO that I'm talking to these days, there would be one or the other conversation that is hinging on edge, and we'll talk about that. Moving from there into IoT, and this is what creates the data from physical things into streams of data which can be digitally recognized. The newer connectivity that's coming, the next gen connectivity in terms of 5G, just the fact that we will now have broadband speeds of 20 gigabytes per second with 5G is something that tells us that we are now really in reality talking real time. It would be near instantaneous response to any web browsing that happens, the ability to be able to share really large files on the drop of a hat. That's a capability that the next gen connectivity is bringing on. And all of that will fuel more data that can then be analyzed by artificial intelligence or machine learning, with all of the data running in a multi-cloud. So that really is the larger framework of how we believe emerging tech will come together to fuel the progress of humans in the future. The funny thing about edge is we are pretty much and like what we used to be around cloud a couple of years back, where the concept of cloud was still difficult to understand. I think that's what's happening with edge at this point in time. There are folks who tend to see edge more as an architecture, while others would see this more as a technical stack, as thin edge or a thick edge. And a thin edge would be gateway with software, whereas a thick edge would be servers with software. And then there are others who look at this as a pick between device versus compute. So all of those definitions, by the way, we firmly believe are true. But the value of edge is not in what edge is, but what can edge be used to deliver. And that strategy is what will differentiate organizations that are able to use edge to get an edge in the end, or organizations who will still struggle to figure out what exactly they are looking at edge to deliver. In reality, edge is really allowing machines and things to communicate with the digital services. That, in my mind, is a very, very good definition of what edge is able to do. One size ain't gonna go fit all of the everyone in the world. So, which is where it'll be important that organizations and the CIOs are able to decide what exactly would be their edge strategy. What is the end goal that they're looking at getting from edge? And basis that they go and define the architectures, they go and define what kind of devices or compute architectures are they going to go use to make that a reality. So edge becomes an extremely, extremely important part of the emerging tech. The second piece is really IoT. And IoT is what is really bringing the physical world into converting the physical world into streams of data that can then be analyzed in near real time basis to provide responses to be able to create that data analysis, which will fuel the entire software innovation path. So IoT is that extremely important piece, which is allowing humans and devices to go interact with the digital world. And a strategy around IoT working in conjunction with edge is what will create those humongous streams of data. Just to put things in perspective and coming with the next gen connectivity, mobile data is expected to grow by 800% in the next 3 to 4 years. And 45%, that's nearly half of that data, is expected to reside on edge. So edge and IoT working in conjunction to bring this data deluge, which can then be harnessed as information and as analysis or something that can be acted upon, is going to be supremely critical. I spoke about the fact that next gen technologies on connectivity are going to be extremely critical. Now, imagine 5G would allow 1,000 more devices to connect as compared to 4G per meter. That really is the power of what we are talking about. Now, as you're able to get so many more devices connected, as you're able to get so much more information coming in from those devices, be it the mobile data, be it the data from machines, be it the data from devices, all of that allows the data to come in a coherent manner right to the edge, from the edge to core, and from core to cloud. And that's what's bringing a unification of all of these technologies that will further innovation. Moving on, and AI to me is quite an oxymoron. And the reason I make this statement is because while this is at the top of the hype curve right now, in reality, this as a term was coined over 50 years back. The fact that AI is now at the forefront of innovation is because you have the fuel in terms of data, you have the engine in terms of compute capabilities, either through CPU or through the accelerators like FPGAs and IPUs and GPUs. And finally, you have the brain in terms of the advanced algorithms that are now available. More importantly, however, the fact that AI models become better and better as you go and throw more data into them makes them far more reliable, and which is where organizations need to have a clear strategy, and they need to know that they'll be able to build on their success. With this entire conversation happening around singularity, there's a futurists are also predicting that we'll have, there are predictions about 9 years or 10 years, you would have scenario where AI would be able to pass the Turing test. Now, I'm no futurist, and I don't think that's what we're looking for here, but what that really expresses, or what that really brings to table, is the fact that the advances in technology around AI are so strong. They are making things possible today that were outside the realms of imagination. So wrapping this all up, these technologies, right from edge to edge and IoT working together using the next gen connectivity, along with artificial intelligence with data residing on multi-cloud, is the virtuous cycle is the combination of technologies which we believe is going to really further the acceleration into the digital journey. Now, the reality also is that all of this is not as simple as it sounds. The biggest challenge that organizations that we engage with and there are millions of those across the globe, CIOs typically would find, and the biggest challenge has been to bring skills in terms of people skills, in terms of technical skills, so that they are able to learn and deploy the newest technologies. But as that happens, equally, we've got to remember that there are legacy systems, there are tools, there are processes which are currently in deployment. So how do you bring these two things, these two worlds together? And that's really the big complexity. The complexity of working, bringing the old and the new tech together with the skills that do not exist in plenty today. Working at timelines that are really short and the data that's ever growing, by the way, and it is growing in multiple forms. It's not just one structured data that is growing. You've got multiple streams of unstructured data that is coming in and newer forms of data that continue to emerge every single time. So those are the challenges that we are that we are all grappling with. But remember, as an organization, Dell Technologies has been able to transform itself, and we are working with so many customers in their journey of transformation and supporting them in the process. What we have realized these are the 5 key things that any organization needs to focus on over and above focusing on the digital transformation or IT transformation or workforce or security. First is now is the time to invest in emerging tech. Investing now would give you time to understand, to learn, and to develop skills. Number two is the buy-in across the organization is critical, right from the top to the bottom, and everyone who exists in between. Clearly, if you do not think about the data first mindset or unlocking the value of data, deploying some of these emerging technologies would not help anywhere. So it really needs to start with strategy. It needs to start with getting the buy-in and also simplifying your entire stack. You heard me talk about legacy technologies and the fact that you'll have to go marry those with the newer technologies, which is where it becomes important to create a stack within the organization which is modern, which is flexible, which is modular, which comes with a data first approach and thus can integrate the newer technologies that much more better and faster. And all of this strategy needs to be built for results, which have to be identified, where the entire energy of the organization needs to be focused on. Needless to say, this is all going to run in a multi-cloud world. So let me just recuperate what we spoke about. Invest now, ensure that the organization is aligned, ensure that data first is the mindset across, simplify your stack, and be very focused on what the results need to be. As we look at this, the priorities have to start today. How do you transform? How does one work to create a team of partners who understand this entire transformation journey? How do you go invest in new skills and technology and use an approach that's been proven over a period of time? That is precisely what will bring in the agility. That's exactly what will bring in the ability to successfully transform yourself to create value for the organization in the longer term. And that's exactly the approach that I know all of us are working towards. Being an organization that's been working around this across so many countries with so many customers, we have been extremely focused in number one, creating skills within our organization. We have an army of subject matter experts on a lot of these technologies that I spoke to you just now. And we would be extremely happy to bring those resources to come and engage with you. I would strongly urge you as you go through this journey and as you define your strategic partners, we would love to be one of those. We have got engineered solutions, we have got the right skills, we have got ways to engage, and we have been able to modernize and transform our workforce to ensure that we are going to be in this journey with you at every single step. With this, I come pretty much to the end of my conversation. I'm pretty excited. I'm really passionate about what emerging technologies can bring on table for all of us and how they can all help us further this new world. Would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me and my colleagues, and we would love to be a partner with you in this journey. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for a precise presentation on the role of emerging technologies in this digital world. Everyone, please feel free to drop your session-related questions in the chat box. Our experts are here to clear your doubts. Stay tuned.